Hello and welcome back. You are watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Max Bagashev and these are the headlines. Policemen in Zhanaozen were given order to open fire by the deputy head of the Regional Internal Affairs Department, said several case witnesses on Thursday. The Interior Minister demands law enforcement officers to get in shape and lose extra pounds. Policemen remaining overweight are risking to lose their jobs. Kazakh poet and philosopher Abay Kunanbayev became a leading trend in the Russian Twitter segment after opposition in Moscow chose a square with his monument as a protest location. The order for the police to open fire at Zhanaozen residence on December 16 was given by Otigaliyev, the deputy head of the Mangistau Regional Internal Affairs Department. Their testimony with accusations were given on Thursday by several witnesses on the policeman trial.
Witness Nurken Jamalbekov reported that Otigaliyev and the chief of Zhanaozen police, Kozhaev, gave the order to line up. The next order from Otigaliyev was to arm, said another witness, Modalbekov. Yet another witness said the order to line up was given by Miltikov. A police witness, Jamalbekov, admitted that he was firing at people and wounded two in the legs. Other policemen claimed they only fired weapons in the air. In addition, on Thursday's hearing, the victims told the court that they have been under pressure. Hasan Dusikenov, the victim and a relative of one of the murdered in December, said he was called for his workplace during the hearing and believes his management is under pressure from the National Security Committee. Also, during the 7-minute break, the witness and the defendant were talking about something, reported the trial observer, communist Andrei Tsukanov.
Police officers reported in court that they have submitted the weapons back in the afternoon and haven't since then heard any shooting. However, the victim testimonies claim that shooting continued all afternoon. For instance, victim Tanatarov said he was wounded around 6 o'clock in the evening when he went out to the backyard. Another victim in the case, Atabayev, was wounded at about the same time when he was returning home from work after getting a phone call from his father asking him to get home as fast as he can. Witness Daukenov reported he was shot around 8 p.m. while Bigaliyev said the same happened to him sometimes between 8 and 9 p.m. The defense had also established that some shooting took place on the next day after the mass disorders. Witnesses and victims claim a sniper was working at the square already after the initial incident. The hearing of arguments was held on Thursday during the trial of former Zhanaozen temporary detention facility head. The state prosecutor who was speaking first asked for 5 years and confiscation of property. However, the victim's attorney objected the light sentence and counter-offered 10 years in prison, as well as $34,000 in compensation to be paid to the Kenjibayev's family. The lawyer also asked to instigate criminal cases against the former head of Zhanaozen DIA, as well as the investigation team leader. Now I believe that the court will announce a fair verdict because many things, including population and law enforcement attitude, will depend on the court decision. Of course, we would object should the court clear him of charges or decide on a light punishment. We still can appeal to higher instances, including the Supreme Court. Sharing his impressions about the trial after attending it, the chief editor of Zhasalash newspaper, Respected Senbai, called the process nothing but a play. He believes Temirov should not be tried alone, but together with all his superiors. Who had committed this crime? Why and how did they do it? Were the criminal cases instigated against those related to the crime? Was there a rule of law? Were they punished accordingly? We need to focus attention on such moments. If we find the answers to the questions, the whole thing will appear as a play. It can hardly be called a trial. The defendant, meanwhile, had asked the victims to forgive him and not let him go to jail. He admitted his fault, saying he made a mistake by implementing illegitimate orders of his command. To recap, Temirbayev is charged with abuse of office. One of 4 victims, Kenjibayev, died in the surgery room from injuries sustained during detention in the temporary detention ward between December 16 and 18. The court ruling on the case will be announced on May 17. Yesterday's hearing on the case of 37 oil field workers continued for only 1 hour. Presiding Judge Nagashibayev, who planned to start the debates on Thursday, postponed them until today. It's not easy for our children. We had already 2 instances in May when court wasn't working for up to 4 days a week due to holidays. On Thursday, the hearing was cancelled again. The defense member Alibayev had filed a petition during yesterday's hearing stating he is not ready for debate, which was also supported by prosecution. However, judge expressed his dissatisfaction with the fact and said the process should not be protracted any longer. After questioning two witnesses remaining from the Tuesday hearing, presiding Judge Nagishibayev had placed two warnings. He allocated a half of the day for parties to report about additional witnesses and completion of case materials, and then asked both defense and prosecution not to come up with previously unmentioned details during the upcoming debates. The defense welcomed this ruling, saying they had enough time to prepare for the debates. Of course, despite defendants' outrage about the passing time, 1 or a half a day will not make such a big difference, because it's crucial that we prepare well by studying all the materials properly and making correct conclusions. I believe the just decision of the court will depend on this. At the Shetpet trial, the situation was similar, except it was the prosecutor who was not prepared. Public prosecutor Turaev requested the judge to give him more time to study the case and re-examine documents until May 14. The judge partially satisfied the appeal by providing additional time until May 11. There are 12 defendants in the case of the riots at the Shetpet station. By now, all case materials have been read and witnesses questioned. Arguments of the parties will begin on May 11. 11 policemen have been dismissed from the force for allowing convicts to escape from the Zhezkazgan temporary detention facility. The information was revealed on Thursday by the Interior Ministry official spokesman Nurdilda Uras.
Deputy head of the Interior of Zhezkazgan, the head of the isolation ward and police officers on duty that day are among those who were fired for the prison break in Zhezkazgan. Security guards and the duty officer have been stripped of their ranks as well. Moreover, 3 members of the security agencies are on trial now as the criminal case was initiated against them. Actions of the police officers to protect the temporary detention facility of Ministry of Interior in Zhezkazgan have been reclassified as omission of official duties. 3 of the duty officers were detained and placed in temporary detention facility in Karaganda.
The Interior Minister Kalmuhamed Kasymov said on Thursday, quote, "Fat policemen have no place in the force," end quote. Indeed, the upcoming evaluation of the law enforcement will leave overweight officers without their post. The weight issue was first raised by the Mangistau region authorities, who stepped up their athlete training of their personnel. The entire corps of Mangistau police has been charged to combat obesity. The regional DIA had issued an advisory to its staff and officers to get into perfect shape before the next qualification validation. The department chief has specifically instructed not to allow overweight officers to take the validation test. He said they should just resign voluntarily. Nevertheless, the Interior Minister himself reassures the concerned overweight officers. Kalmuhamed Kasymov did confirm that there will be firings for extra weight. But if the moral and professional qualities of an officer outweigh his physical parameters, the case will be decided on an individual basis. At the same time, the minister added that a good physical shape is not only pleasing to the eye, but also indicates good health. Such an officer is not fit for duty. He is incapable of health reasons. We must introduce these tough standards to all drill units, such as patrol officers, traffic police, special forces, and those who work with the population. General Gani Kasymov, the former chief of the Customs Committee, is not happy about the weight problem among law enforcement officers either. He says that senior leadership should be particularly lean. If an officer is giving orders to privates to catch criminals or organize ambushes but cannot do it himself because he is out of breath or has a beer belly, there is nothing to talk about. What moral right does he have to issue commands? The revalidation starts next Monday, May 14, and an unscheduled test in May will be given to 1,700 police officers. The financial police are the first on the list. They have 3 more days to get in shape. It is quite possible to lose weight in such a short period of time, assures the Interior Minister. I can put on 3 kilos and then I would need 3, 4 or 5 days to lose it. A well-known Uralsk poet Baurjan Khalioli was assaulted on May 8. The victim believes the attack might be a payback for his criticism-induced performance during the poetic competition on February 12, when the poet raised Zhenozan issues. why the president had ignored the people, why he didn't pay attention to people who protested in Zhanaozen for 7 months instead of asking for people's permission, why didn't he look at the situation with his own eyes? Since the recent murder attempt of journalist Lukban Akhmedyarov, another similar incident took place in Uralsk. On May 8, poet Bauzhan Khalioli was reported attacked, an incident still unconfirmed by the DIA. Its representative Nurdilda Uras had even officially denied the fact, emphasizing that the Radio Azatlyk, which broke the news first, may be held accountable if the information remains not confirmed.
При опросе он полностью отрицал о нападении в отношении его.
During the questioning, he refuted the fact of the assault and said he first heard about it from police officers. He personally signed the indictment indicating there was no assault. At the same time, the poet himself told reporters about the incident taking place, saying he simply didn't want to refer to the police on the matter. He explained the indictment was actually requested by the police. The poet said he signed it after long admonition by the officers. They came after me and took their time asking me to sign the statement that no one had really attacked me. Recalling the assault, Bauzhan Khalioli says he had not done anything bad to anyone that he knows of. However, in his Radio Azatlyk interview, the poet said that the aggression against him may have been provoked by his February poetic improvisation competition, in which he sang about the Zhanaozen shootings. Interestingly, the next day following the event, Khalioli was asked whether he fears a cruel response for his critical poems. The poet replied then, "Dear caring friend, my soul is overwhelmed. No one did shoot at me, so did none kill me, and alive I return to you." Uralsk court has sanctioned the arrest of 2 suspects in the case of Lukban Akhmedyarov, the independent reporter with Uralskaya Pravda newspaper. During a briefing on Thursday, the police revealed the young men were arrested back on May 6.
Considering the circumstances of the case, the court ordered a 10-day detention upon the day of arrest to prevent suspects from escaping the preliminary investigation authorities and obstructing the crime investigation. Lukban Akhmedyarov says the case has many questionable details and real criminals could escape the punishment. The journalist hasn't received the official information on the suspects yet. However, he learns about new details every day. First, Akhmedyarov was told 4 people were arrested, including 2 pupils carrying out someone's order. Then it was revealed that pupils acted at their own will. And even later it appeared the arrested culprits are no longer pupils but men in their 20s. To recap, on April 19th, the independent journalist was attacked by unidentified assailants, sustaining several stab and bullet wounds. The reporter spent 16 days in a hospital. The police of Uralsk is under strict time limits to capture the assailants before the president arrives to the western Kazakhstan region, says Lukban Akhmedyarov. If they want to solve the case by any possible means, then I disagree. I believe the forcing of false testimonies and prosecution of innocent people not involved in this crime is a possible scenario. Certain details may get misconstrued.
In the meantime, Kazakhstan's dissenters are actively using Facebook to discuss the date of the next rally. During the last protest action on April 28, their preliminary date was set for June 2nd. However, many believe their rally should take place sooner.
31 мая, день политических репрессий.
May 31st, the day of political reprisals, is marked almost as a national holiday in Kazakhstan, while in fact it is Memorial Day for Stalin's repressions of 1937. The topic is quite relevant nowadays, especially while the Aktau trials are still underway. The upcoming Day of Dissent will be the 5th protest action in a series of similar events. Traditionally, it will be held on the square between Abai's monument and the Hotel Kazakhstan. The previous actions drew up crowds of around 1,000 people. The key topics for discussion remain the same: the re-examination of materials on Zhanaozen case, political modernization of the country, improvement of the social and economic situation, and withdrawal of inciting social hatred charges against Kazakhstan's politicians and public activists. All of the previous rallies resulted in administrative arrests for participants and organizers. The last group of detainees will be released on May 13th.
Famous Kazakh poet and philosopher Abai Kunanbayev unexpectedly became the symbol of protest movement in Russia. For several days, the opposition gathers crowds of supporters next to the Abai's monument in Moscow. Russian Twitter has exploded on Thursday with a new trend, Occupy Abai, mimicking the American Occupy Wall Street movement. The trend remained at the top of the Russia Twitter segment throughout the day and even reached the worldwide ranking. Kazakhstan Twitters also helped to boost the support for Russia's opposition members promoting the trend. After it reached leading positions, bloggers began quoting the poet and found Abai Kunanbayev used to stand for the same values as Russian protesters. The idea was born to produce T-shirts with an image of Kunanbayev similar to the widely used Che Guevara print. Abai's Twitter account was also registered later in the day. It is symbolic that since January, dissenters in Kazakhstan mostly hold rallies near Abai monuments in different cities across the country. Now the Kazakh poet has become popular among Russia's opposition members. For several days already they chant anti-Putin slogans near the Moscow's Abai monument near the embassy of Kazakhstan. It's worth noting that the monument was installed there at Putin's initiative. The worst person of all is a person without aspirations, Abai Kunanbayev. I will go to the bookstore today and search for Abai Kunanbayev poems. We should know more than just names of our heroes. It seems that now Abai Kunanbayev is well known in Russia to the same extent as Pushkin and Lermontov. Maybe Abai is indeed the one to blame for the protest. Maybe he gathered the dissenters next to his monument and then his soul flew to Russia. The protest next to the Abai monument continued on Thursday despite the 15-day arrest of opposition leaders Udaltsov and Navalny.
More people came by the evening. The holidays are over and people now show up after work. Boris Nemtsov and Ilya Yashin arrived around 6 p.m. They said that people will stay at the square for as long as possible. Most of the protesters are planning to gather in the evenings now and prepare for a big opposition rally of June 12th.
In the meantime, in Kazakhstan, less people are ready to join rallies next to Abai monument, following harsh warnings by authorities and general low activity of the population. Despite this, journalist Kasim Amanjol, who produced a documentary about Abai, believes that one day Kazakhstan citizens will be heard by the leaders in power.
It has become symbolic to gather near Abai monument and speak against the regime. Now Kazakhstan opposition leaders organize their rallies near Abai monument, and I believe this is a positive trend. If Russia's opposition decided to hold their protests near Abai's monument, it means that their civic engagement in a political life is more developed than it is in Kazakhstan.
Who is Abai Kunanbayev? Most of the time, people in Kazakhstan do know the right answer. A prominent poet, philosopher, scholar, true democrat, and the founder of Kazakh realistic literature.
He wrote Karakozder, which has formed the underlying principles of Kazakh people. He's the founding father of Kazakh classics. His life's goal was to make changes in Kazakh legislation and build a new society based on justice and human treatment of the ordinary people. He would always encourage the idea of educating the younger generation. He was a patriot of his own people, the middle class.
Abai Kunanbayev was also mentioned by the leaders of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, who held official talks on Thursday. Soon the poet's monument will be raised in Bishkek. The president of Kyrgyzstan, Almazbek Atambayev, conducted his first official visit to Kazakhstan. A number of questions were addressed during the meeting of the two nations' leaders. One of them related to opening a checkpoint, Kedar-Karkara, on the border that had been closed down by Kazakhstan due to 2010 riots in Kyrgyzstan, which led to increased arms traffic. Citizens of Kyrgyzstan will also enjoy the simplified procedure for visiting the neighbor country now, 90 days with their registration certificate and 5 days without the need to be registered. On the whole, the talks between the two presidents had the patronizing undertones. Nazarbayev reminded Atambayev that Kazakhstan provides multi-million-dollar humanitarian aid to Kyrgyzstan and also advised his colleague to cut the political talk and get down to real work. Perhaps the erection of the Abai monument is one of such real tasks. We have made a decision to erect the Abai monument in Bishkek. We will also name streets after Chokan Valikhanov and Chingiz Aytmatov in our respective capitals. I believe this is fair and the idea will be supported by the people. More than 100 villages have been evacuated in the Karaganda region due to the risk of a Koibas dam failure. The lower dam water level, the emergency authorities made an artificial washout next to the reservoir.
Проран – это дыра, но не в самой плотине.
We have a washout there, so it's not a dam bridge. It's an artificial pond surrounded by an embankment. 200 meters from the dam, we've made an opening in the embankment at an acceptable water level to remove excess water and reduce pressure on the dam itself. The dam number 1 is an earthen construction with a natural automatic spillway. The risk of the dam failure occurred due to the collapse of the dam wall. The washout now allows to reduce the water level. However, 29 houses of a small village Koibas are still at risk of flooding. More than 100 villages have been evacuated while the cattle was taken to a neighboring Sarepta. The remaining 8 people refused to leave their homes and negotiations with them are currently underway. The property of evacuated villages is guarded by the police. The authorities are continuing to thoroughly monitor the spillway.
64 people have been taken to hospitals in the South Kazakhstan region diagnosed with food poisoning. One day prior, all of the patients were guests at a wedding celebrated in a local cafe, which could soon be considered a crime scene if the prosecution office will instigate the criminal case. Talgat Stamkulov is one of the 400 guests invited to a wedding on Wednesday. They were happily celebrating, and now everyone is in the hospital with an identical diagnosis of food poisoning. Next day we started to feel sick. We had fever, acute stomach aches and dizziness. We called an ambulance and now I've been here for 2 days. The doctors believe that the number of victims may increase since many came to the wedding from other regions, while the currently available data is only for the Kazakh district. Its central hospital admitted 50 people diagnosed with an acute intestinal infection. 14 more were brought to the regional center hospitals. When admitted, these patients were in moderate severity condition and it hasn't changed since. They all complained of fever, stomach aches, diarrhea and vomiting. This is why we are keeping them in hospital for observation. Health authorities believe that the reason for mass poisoning could be meat products. The meat was prepared in home conditions 1 day before the wedding. The storage conditions were poor as all the meat was put on trestle bed covered by a plastic film. Also, the next day the meat was delivered to the wedding with violations of transportation and storage conditions. Cafe Mereo that hosted the wedding has been closed with the owner and chief cook fined. The establishment employees, however, argue that they have nothing to do with the incident. The cooked meat, fish, all the salads and even the second course, everything was brought by the clients. I guarantee this and I can testify about it anywhere. We only rent the cafe out. The regional prosecutor's office is initiating the paperwork to start a criminal case of mass poisoning. The true reason of the incident will become known only in several days after the completion of a number of medical tests. On May 9, Kazakhstan, amongst other countries of the former USSR, marked the 67th anniversary of the victory in World War II. Find out more about the celebrations from the next report. Only 9,500 Kazakhstani veterans have lived to see the Victory Day on May 9, 2012. A year ago, there were twice as many. Yesterday, the most important Almaty location became the park named after 28 heroes of Panfilov Division. Traditional celebration took place next to the Heroes Memorial. Every veteran heard warm congratulations and received flowers. One of them was brought to the eternal flame by his great-grandchildren. Birimjan Sabirjanov is 87. He is glad that people still remember heroism of their fathers. The old man was one of the soldiers who even reached Germany during the war. I was fighting in Ukraine, Hungary and Austria, and we even reached Birnau. I will never forget the moment we heard victory news. The official ceremony of commemoration and laying flowers to the eternal flame started with the city mayor's speech. The celebration continued after that, and the wartime music filled the air. Let me once again congratulate you on this great day. I want to wish you peace and good health, happiness, prosperity and many years ahead. Meanwhile, the main square of the capital hosted a parade of the veterans, preceded by a minute of silence. The head of state laid flowers at the monument of motherland's defender. The holiday was celebrated in the regions as well. In Aktau, the Pavlodar veterans of battle and home fronts found themselves in the center of attention, dancing, singing and sharing the memories. A replica of a field kitchen was set up as well. The celebration of the great victory culminated with 10-minute fireworks all across Kazakhstan. Thanks for joining us. This is all we have time for now. Goodbye.